You know most people here, or
I've probably met most people, but when it comes to names, sometimes I sort of spoil you.
well, that's good. And you take the floor.
Thanks a lot. Look, thanks for the opportunity for Serena and I to join you again today. The purpose of this session really is just to try and provide you with a little bit of a verbal update on some of the issues, challenges, restructuring that's going on in our health sector at the moment, and how that impacts on the areas that we cover, and especially your rural Hurunui district. So I had a look at the slides that I prepared for the last time I met with you folks, and I don't think there was one slide there that was actually accurate. So you can see why I haven't prepared slides, because we are working and living a very different sort of scenario at the moment. So basically, where I want to try and do is talk to you just a little bit about what has happened since the changes, since I last addressed you. So Te Aka Whaiora, that was the new Māori health arm of Te Whatu Ora, which is our new Health New Zealand name. That course got disbanded under the current government and is now merged with Te Whatu Ora. And with that said, with the restructuring that's been going on, a number of those individuals have moved on. So at the moment, the current structure that's been put in place is being led by Dr. Lester Levy, who has been appointed as the National Commissioner for Health New Zealand. And from that, we've now got 3 other regional commissioners being put in place. And so the regional commissioner here for Te Waipanami, for South Island, is Martin Gioch. Now, Martin came from the health sector based in Canberra and has a very strong hospital focus. And we have just attempted to meet up with him just to make sure that he doesn't actually forget about primary care, and especially the rural primary care services. So as you're probably aware in the media, the hospital sector services is under intense fiscal scrutiny. It is proving to be somewhat of a challenge, and part of that is not just about service delivery, it is also about the current restructuring. So you probably read in the news just regarding the voluntary redundancy processes that have been taking place, and they have been announced. And I have to say that some very key staff have actually taken that voluntary redundancy option, which leaves a huge institutional sort of knowledge about primary care, the NGO sector, allied health sector, midwifery issues, as it relates to rural service delivery. However, that's not the end of it, because they were looking for around about 800 redundancies, and the voluntary redundancy just saw about 27% of that target being met. So now we await a further restructuring, which was meant to be announced at the end of October. And then when I was talking in Wellington last week, they said it's probably going to be at the end of November, and who knows, it could even be into the new year. So what I'm just trying to share with you is there is so much change going on. So the things that I raised with you last time about the Te Paitata strategic plan, it's all been put on hold. The Te Waipanami, which is the South Island Health and Wellbeing Plan, there's not too much work going on around that particular sector at the moment. So where do I sit? Where does the PHO sit at the moment? And so primary health, for me anyhow, all I've tried to do is to continue advocating for rural services. That's been my core function. And last month, I managed to get an audience with the South Island Mayoral Forum. Mari was actually chairing that with Dan's absence. And that actually went very well. And I took Dr. Grant Davison with me down there to present. Now, he actually is the CEO of Hauora Tawhenua. So what's Hauora Tawhenua? That is the old rural general practice network New Zealand. And so it was a very, what I thought, we were given half an hour, but we actually extended that, and there was some really solid questions being asked to us at the lunchtime gathering, to such an extent that we've been invited back to the next South Island Mayoral Forum. Now, why I share that with you is that the importance of actually sharing that information with the South Island mayors, because collectively we can do a lot more than rather just PHOs, rather than just primary care. We all need to have some skin in the game. You do have some responsibility to the well-being of the people that live in this Huranui area. And so we have been very fortunate, and I say we, Waitaha Primary Health has been very fortunate that we've had some solid support from Hamish and Ashburton, Dan and Raimak and Māori Black in the Huranui. And so where I'm getting to is that we actually asked Māori to come to our recent, after our urgent care and prime workshop that Te Whatu Ora, Health New Zealand, will run. And Māori spoke on behalf of the Huranui of some of the challenges. And I can tell you, with the politicians sitting in their room, Māori got heard. And it's that type of support that we seek to have from you folks, just trying to move forward. When Dan turns up to Rural Fest, we had a Rural Fest. Now, what's Rural Fest? So this is the Haroata Whenua Rural Communities Chapter, which I'm the Deputy Chair of. We organised a parliamentary visit, and we actually addressed all the political parties. And the reason why we're trying to do that is actually to make sure that the rural voice is actually heard and any decisions being made around any changes to the health sector, but in particularly support rural. So what have we got out of that? We've now got, since March, a rural commissioner attached to Te Whatu Ora. Rachel Pearce is leading that, and I can tell you folks, in the last 6 months, the rural voice has been heard and she is championing that rural support. And so what that means is that next month, on the 10th of December, there is an audience with Matt Ducey, who'll be just down the road here, Dr. Shane Retty, the chair of our health minister, just to promote some of the findings that we've been doing through the National Prime Committee, the Rural, Urgent and Unplanned Care scenario, which also includes St John for us. We're actually giving St John a bit of a solid boost because we actually need them in our rural areas. So that's just where we are at the moment. What does that outcome mean? Hopefully that there has been enough work done that the Treasury bid for next year's funding round will support the capitation review. The capitation is the funding model that exists at the moment for the whole of New Zealand to our general practice based on enrolled population, but we've actually done some pretty serious work around the need to have a heavier weighting in that capitation formula for rural services. Now, that's where we're up to at the moment. I'm hopeful that if you do invite me back next year, that I'll be able to give you some pretty positive news, because if we can get that weighting, that will lead to more and better fiscal sustainable services in the Huranui and in Banks Peninsula and in some of the other lying areas like Twizel, Te Anau, all those Tuatapere areas. So while I talk to you just about our particular area here, I'm also representing a number of initiatives at a national level, which represents the whole of rural in Aotearoa. So that's just where we are at the moment. Really, I'm happy to share with you the Te Pai Tata strategic plan. I'm happy to share with you the Te Waipounamu health and wellbeing plan for your information. The practices have got it, but there's been very little work being done at the moment because of the challenges that we have. So just to give you an example of what we've been putting up with, some of our contracts which expired on the 30th of June, we've just received the last one of those. Now, we've had to keep paying our practices for 3 months. And luckily we've been able in a position to do that, but actually it is pretty difficult when we just don't really know. Does it cause unsettlement in my team? Yes, it does, because no one really knows what's going on. So that's just where we are. Mental health continues to be a significant challenge for us in our areas, At the moment, we are doing all we can to try and increase some funding mechanisms so that we can keep supporting what we're doing up here in the Huranui, but also what we're doing in the Banks Peninsula and the Ashburton area. So look, those are about the 8 or 9 key points that I had for you today. I'm just going to ask Serena if she's got anything else. But then I just want to open it up for questions, because I really do appreciate the opportunity just to come and just give you a quick snapshot of actually what we're dealing with. But my plea is, please keep supporting us. We do need to collectively work together. And by getting an audience with that South Island Mayoral Forum, this never ever happened in the North Island. And now I've been asked to see if I can set it up for the North Island. I'm more worried about the South Island at the moment. That's where I'm going to be, working. So, Serena,
yeah, the other week I met with practices in the morning tea room over there, and we all met with St John, and very much the theme of the health system at the moment is doing more with either the same or less if possible. And so we had a good chat, and there were some things that came out of it that don't necessarily cost more money, but are helpful to the community. Things like staffing the Huranui one in Hanmer Springs for the busy times. They don't have extra resources to give to the community, but they can move things around just to make the response a little bit sooner, a little bit smoother for our communities, which is really nice. So a lot of communication, a lot of wiggling around has to be done now. Where before the theme was about wholesale change and throwing everything out the window and doing it all differently. Now it's like, all right, we're here. What can we do with what we've got at the moment? So, and yeah, thank you guys for your support all the time. We really appreciate it.
So thanks, Serena. So just one last point I didn't raise was that how do we do things better, or how do we do things more in a collaborative way that supports St John, but also supports well-being in the home? So one of the things is that we've been working very closely with the Maya Foundation, which is a body attached to Te Whatuora in Christchurch, which accepts bequests on behalf of those people wishing to make donations. Yeah, there's a significant money sitting in the air that's been donated by rural people, and we've been asked to pull together a plan to see what we can do. So one of the things that we're looking at is actually putting in point-of-care testing machines in all our rural practices, especially up here. What does that mean? That certain blood tests can be done to, like troponins, for cardiovascular risk assessment, etc. Do we need to just monitor them there in the practice? Do we need to get the ambulance to get them, sirens down to Christchurch? Do we need to get a helicopter? All those sorts of things. Now, this is something that the practices have been asking for. These machines are about $27,000 each. But the challenge is that the labs are concerned about it because it potentially could blow their budgets. So we're just caught up in this sort of dynamics of actually what we can do for the community to make it easier for our general practice teams, our primary care teams, to support wellbeing and also appropriate response of the other resources that we do heavily rely on primary care, like St John's and everybody else like that. So that's just where we are. We're just pulling a paper together for that now. So hopefully in 3 or 4 months' time, I'll be able to give you some information about what's actually happening there for that. So that's really what I've done. As I said, I haven't prepared a presentation. I don't apologise for that because things are changing so fast that what I said today will probably change tomorrow. But any questions from anybody? And hopefully, Vince, that's really what you're after today.
Yeah, no, sure. Lisa.
The meeting that you talk about with Shane Reedy and Matt Ducey, that's not a public forum, is it?
No, that's just going to be in Wellington. So
okay, right.
Yeah. That's a good point. Like I am trying to get a meeting with Matt Ducey at the moment. There was also a fellow called Hamish Campbell, which is the member of Ireland, who chairs the Health Select Committee, and there's been a little bit of interest about if we do manage to pull that off. There's some people would like to attend that, so I'll just keep everybody in the loop about it.
Bill, this question might be a little too direct, and if it is, I'll understand if you pass it to one side. What is your reading, if I can ask, of the mood within the coalition government? I won't name individual parties, but just calling it the coalition government. Obviously, they are determined to improve the effectiveness and the savings within the economy, and, you know, getting rid of excess spending and all the other things they talk about. Deep down, do you sense that they actually do have a plan that is going to see a more effective and financially or procedurally, a more effective health system? Is it really high on their agenda that they actually want to achieve that? Do they actually understand the issues that we're all facing today?
So
I'm sorry it's so direct.
No, I'll answer this, but I'll just answer it because I am trying to be politically neutral in this. So
Understand.
I want to say that comment. I am aware that the current government has done a lot and have brought in a lot of consultancies to try and unravel the true fiscal position of Health New Zealand. And my understanding is that that's been a big journey. And so the deficit versus the reality was so far apart that something had to happen. So I do believe that when I'm talking to Hamish and I'm talking to Jane and everybody else, that they do want to make a better health system. However, some of the process, now this is me and me moving to the other side, when I'm talking to the consultants, when I'm talking to ED consultants, when some of this restructuring is taking away the administration function and all that sort of stuff going on, what that means is that our consultants are spending more time doing that type of work, which takes them away then from theatre and from everything else. Just trying to keep a balance to this discussion. So basically, yep, the $140 million a month overdraft is trying to be addressed. So this is where Serena's just saying, trying to live within your budget. But at the same time, what structural changes can be made to enhance health services, including primary care within the hospital sector, and that also includes the roles of the NGOs. And where does ACC fit in all this? And we're trying to link all that into it because they also have a part to play in health services. So that's just where we are from there. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but it is a pretty tricky one. And have they got it right at the moment? I don't think anybody's got it right at the moment. We're just still trying to work through it.
I would love if eventually, and I don't know if it will ever happen, but if the health system could be cross-party agreed and we could have a long-term plan rather than the previous government going this way and this government going that way and everyone's sort of head spinning of what are we up to now? It just is too important to be kicking back and forth like that. Really frustrates and upsets me that that's what happens in our medical system.
Yeah, can I just follow up question there? Thanks, Vince. Is that, again, you made reference to the fact that the mayoral forum or the mayor's meeting that I think you said Murray chaired was a very successful initiative and so on. I'm just thinking to the fact that we see Stuart Smith, who's a senior cabinet minister, not in health, but in other areas, what, every 2 to 3 months here, Hamish? Is that an area where we should be? I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't think we've raised a health issue with Stuart in recent times from a rural health. We talk about other issues. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't be putting in a little bit more direct feedback into our meetings with Stuart Smith.
Any support is appreciated. Stuart is across some of the stuff. I've spoken to him. He was at the Real Fest Day and he purposely, sussed me out to have a bit of a chat because of the dealings I've had with him in the Kaikoura area. So, but the membership of Hauora Whenua is the Waimak and the Hurunui at the moment. That's the only two councils. Oh, Clutha has just joined. Now, what I need to know is to have 5 or 6 or 7 more TLAs being involved with Hauora Whenua, because that voice then becomes the voice that actually the politicians actually start to listen to. Do they listen to me really as a PHO? Yes, they say they do, but I'm not just too sure. But having your support behind me, then they start to listen.
Thank you.
It's interesting, the waiting list for to get to see a GP in some areas. I know that Donna, the Met practice manager in Cheviot, said that they've got another 200, I think, patients on their books in the last couple of years from people either they've shifted and they've stayed with the doctor, or people from leaving around ambulance because they ring up to see the GP in 6 weeks' time.
So look, I didn't mention workforce, so it was written down here, but look, workforce is a significant challenge, and even trying to bring in GP and maintain our nursing staff and our primary care services. So the primary care nursing, there's a 27% disparity between salaries paid in the primary care sector versus that of the hospital sector. So guess where they're all going? Australia is also paying them big money, so they're heading over there. So look, our GP workforce, like if you're in the West Coast, like in Buller at the moment, it's a significant challenge. In some of our areas, people from Westport are actually travelling to Christchurch for their GP work because there is no GP up there. And so you've seen the debacles in the paper just about after hours and telephone triage services being offered up there. Like even just in Amberley here, we had a registrar there, Rex, and one of the other GPs there that were providing supervision to that particular individual. Weren't able to do so, but the college wouldn't even allow any virtual supervision to occur. So that individual now has moved to Christchurch where he can have supervision to train. And the chances are now that he won't come back to work. You see what I'm trying to get at? So the whole system has to work for the whole system to work. And at the moment, it's not. And that's where we need some support from you folks.
Bill, I was there for your presentation and it went really well. It certainly hit home for a lot of the rural councils there. There was a zone 5 and 6. That's a local government New Zealand 5 and 6. That's councils across the whole South Island. My understanding is the North Island doesn't have a similar event. They have 4 zones in the North Island, and they don't all get together like the South Island does. But I think that rural and provincial, which is another local government meeting that happens, it gets all the rural and provincial councils from all over New Zealand, and you should be aiming to go to that. But if you ever talk to Mari about that, she can steer you in the right place for that one.
Any lead, because Mari's away now for a few weeks now. A couple of weeks. Yeah. If you could just flip me a quick email, and then I can follow up with Mari, because yeah, I really want to keep this on the radar at the moment, because I think that the next 12 months, well, basically what I'm trying to say is I'm getting quite concerned about primary care and the sustainability of it. That's workforce wise. Even our pharmacists now, what's going on because of warehouse pharmacy setting up, some of the smaller ones are closing down, which is impacting on people getting their scripts, etc. It's a bit of a vicious circle.
So there's a rural and provincial meeting coming up
On the 21st of this month.
Yeah, well, we have to be invited, but I needed people like Dan and Mari to make sure that I did get invited to that group down there. It was the first time, and we did spend a little bit of time preparing for that meeting because we wanted it to be a bit of a hit so we can get back and get in front of you again and just have it.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised the number of rural councils that didn't actually have an understanding of the work that's done in primary health and all area. So I thought it was a really valuable presentation.
We've got a Waimak Health Committee, we've got the Ashburton Social Services. Mari has been convening meetings up here around the social services and the networks, but some of that doesn't happen around the country. But that's the importance of actually us all having a bit of skin in the game.
Yeah. Just the other question I had was the old localities approach that was the approach. Has that been dropped now, or?
The locality approach, it probably has been dropped, but not the iwi Maori partnership boards. So iwi Maori partnership boards are trying to form themselves. So where does Tuahiwi sit, and how far does it go up? Where does the Kaikoura boundaries come down? That's still being worked through at the moment. So iwi Maori partnership boards are still there. Localities, as it was touted, probably is gone, but it will form under a little bit under the iwi Maori partnership board geographical patches.
Probably an observer of the rural medical system for the last 25 years, with my wife working in GPs out in the North Island and here for 25 years, so I'm just an observer. So some of the things that are creating your workplace problems, this well-being, you don't see many doctors or nurses working more than 4 days a week. So, I have heard in the hospital system that one of the big drivers of the higher wages is just meant that a lot of people have gone from 5 days to 4 days. Another observation I've got in a lot of your rural areas, if you are shortage of some medical nurses and that, there's a lot of migrants that you've got in the Hiranui and probably in Winton, and I would suggest Ashburton. It may need some help with navigating what they've got to do to transfer their qualification for a very limited cost. I think you've probably got some migrant. It's too hard, but I'm pretty sure I know that the White House, Robin practice has taken someone on, and it's become very beneficial because a lot of the migrants say yes when it's actually no. You actually don't understand what the practice. So, and my other comment is what's happening up at the Waikari Hospital is brilliant. It's actually working now. You're getting people going in there, but if I'm running a business, I want it full. So you've got to change the criteria up there. You've got qualified nurses. So it's a travesty if there's only 2 beds full of them. So it's
Waikari Hospital, there is some work going down there. Bernie Mara has been leading that. 30% occupancy when it's staffed for 10 beds. It's here we say our GP at Waikari does provide an excellent service and backs up those nurses up there. It could be utilised more. And I was just talking to Wellington yesterday just about our rural hospitals, and I mentioned Waikari, and they were aware of it. So.
It's just an ongoing health was a big hole. You just needs such money to support it. It's just it's pretty difficult.
Yeah, I just appreciate the opportunity to address you all, because I know you all come from various patches that our practices are in. So this is my chance to sort of give you a bit of a heads up of what is going on. So quite happy any time just to come back and just give you a little bit of a snapshot, say in the new year.
Great, yeah, right. And it's good for the community too, because these people really represent the community.
Yeah. And I'll try and remember to follow up with Mary Black if you can actually just.
I'll send an email, Bill.
Yeah, good idea, thanks.
We'll go LGC and see whether we can get on the list somewhere.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did ask for from the conveners of the Dunedin meeting was if we could get a list of the people that were representative, the TLA, so we could actually send them out a letter just to sort of give them a bit of a heads up. But I'm not just too sure that's secret information or not, but I haven't received that yet. So yeah. Yeah,
so every TLA in the South Island is invited to those meetings. So well, except for Christchurch because they're no longer a member of LGNZ, but on the West Coast, Western might be out now too, are they? So so maybe they're not invited either, but yeah, everybody else is invited. They were all there. Yeah, I'd just like to get a letter out just to acknowledge them and say thank them, and also hey, we're there just to try and support. Yeah, keep their buy. Hey, thanks, Office. Get to later on. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chair, so we did have another presenter that called out last late notice. So the next one's not till 11:30, so perhaps you could just adjourn until then.
Just in the way now, so I've been speaking at the
Greg, is it? Which one?
That's Greg.
You're
Very
Greg,
good, Brad, yeah.
yeah, I'll just, I can go around the room and introduce you to, I'm sitting and acting as the chair today,
Okay.
years away. And, we'll just go around.
Gary Jackson, I'm South Ward councillor, this part of the Hurunui.
Pauline White, Southwood councillor.
Westward.
On the West Ward, Hannah Springs.
Ross Barnes, West Ward, Mount Life, and we have a big issue with Douglas Fir.
Karen Armstrong, Waikere and Westwood councillor.
Vanessa McPherson, I'm Southwood councillor.
Vince Daly, this year, and I'm from up north and we a lot of forestry going in around our area as well.
Yeah.
So welcome, guys.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having us today. My name is Greg Gibbons. I'm the Managing Director of Carbon Lab and the founder of Carbon Lab. And Brad Chandler over here is representing DOC, who we're doing this work for. Some people here probably know a lot about wildlands. Some people might not know a lot about wildlands. So I'm not here to give you a lecture on them, but I'm just going to do a little bit of background, especially in the Hamner area where we're working. Oops, and that's not meant to happen. Well, back to the beginning of the presentation. Here we are. 2014, this is behind Hamner, Mount Isabel. I think it's the start of the Clarence River. There was a photo taken in 2014. 3 years later, 2017, that was the spread and how much it's growing. Many of you will know about this. However, not a lot of people get in behind there, but the real issue for us is the two major big seed sites in the South Island, which are the Branch River, 52,000 hectares, the size of Lake Taupo, was planted in the 1970s by distributing seed out the side of an aeroplane. It's a full canopy cover forest, and it sits up in the Marlborough area. Excuse me, something's just happened with my PowerPoint here. Here's another view of the Branch River. As you can see, it's complex, it's mountainous, it's high altitude, almost impossible to harvest. However, it's a major seed source and it is spreading. If we look at it here, you can see the branch leaf encatchments just below the Waiau River. And this will become relevant to this discussion about Hurunui in a minute. If you just bear with me, it's a large area of Douglas fir that is seeding. We're going back now to why we're here, which is Hamner Springs. The site that we're working with is 1,700 hectares. It's all public conservation land owned and managed by DOC. But as you can see there in the front, we've got all the Hamner Forest, which is actually seeded the back part there, the Hamner Forest Park. And just behind those white areas there, you can see areas and patches of brown around the riverbed. Well, that's what I just showed you a minute ago from 2014 to 2017. That's the response that's taken at the moment is to poison the trees. But of course, when you poison them, they, as you all know, that if you've used Roundup on your farms around your home, you've got to keep on poisoning. They keep springing back. And if you open the light up, of course, when you poison them, make them dead, all the seed that's in the ground starts springing up and you've got a re-emerging forest going on. So this encapsulates the wilding program or problem right throughout New Zealand. But the reason why that we think it's really important is because here you can see the branch leaves at the top. The bottom you can see Hamner Forest. The area that I've ringed, you can see it's all green there. That's all seedlings that have come through from the forest. But within 20 years, 25 years, you'll have full canopy cover right through what's considered one of the iconic high country stations in New Zealand, the Molesworth. They're spending a lot of money trying to get rid of it now. Seedlings that are going through there, but until you solve the problem of the seed source, you won't solve the wilding problem. It's that simple. Right, just to reinforce what I'm saying, this was the site we're going to be working on in Hamner. That was today on the right-hand side. 20 years ago, in 2004, you can see small trees popping up here. Then if you go back 29 years ago, the site was barren. They had no trees on it. That was 1995, which isn't that long ago when you consider it. So the spread and take of this noxious weed is incredible. And I guess why we exist, my company, is because we've found another solution to the wilding pine problem. But what I've shown you previously in the previous slide is the macro problem, the big problem, the problem about the seed rain. But if you get at the ground level, the issue is a little bit more complex. On the ground, you've got to remove the seed source. You've also only got methods of removing the seed source at the moment, being trees, with modern harvesting. Modern harvesting leaves slash and debris. And as councils, you probably know what happens with slash and debris when it hits infrastructure. It's an ongoing problem, but it's a method the forestry industry uses. And the other issue is stopping the reinvasion. Spraying, cutting, plugging, doesn't stop the reinvasion. Below ground, you've got a number of issues. One, that there's a huge in-ground seed bank. If any of you have ever walked into a watering forest, it's devoid of anything except other conifers. All natives gone. The ground's dead. And there's a huge seed bank that's built up over 30, 20 years in the ground that's just waiting to go off. The soil legacy, as I said, the ground's dead, carbon's been sucked out of it, any minerals have been sucked out of it, it's depleted, it's acidic. And we've got to reverse the ectomycorrhizal dominance. Now, this is something that's not talked about, and it's a little mystery about wildlings. The fungus is responsible for the advance of wildling Douglas fir conifers. So the ectomycorrhizal fungus actually sits as has a symbiotic relationship with the root system of the Douglas fir. It came in with the first Douglas fir they brought into this country. And what it does is it kills all native fungus under the ground, and it amplifies the speed and the growth of the seeds growing, because it supplies all the things that a Douglas fir seeder needs and depletes everything else. It's an evil little fungus. So we've got to reverse that. So what we do, Carbon Lab started, my background is forestry, so I know a little bit about it, but we looked at it from a different way of looking at it than the way everyone else has looked at it. Quite simply, if you want to get rid of wildlings, especially the seed wildlings, you've got to replace them. You can't just cut them down and expect them to go away. So we have a three-step process: remove, remediate, and regenerate the forest. At each step of the way with these three steps, where carbon's a very important part of what we do. So we call it the RRR carbon process. In a minute, I'm going to talk about removing the wildling trees, because that's pretty significant the way we do that. But remediating the soil function and regenerating the native forest is just as important as removing the wildling trees. This whole process takes about 4 years to do. In the first year, you see a major significant change to the landscape because there's nothing left. There's no wildlings on the slope. And immediately after we've opened the light up, by taking the wildlings off, we remediate the soil structure by, well, I'll get into that in a minute, by spraying like a grass mat over it, which suppresses the seeds coming back up and springing into life. It cuts the light out of it. Regenerating the native. These areas were all covered in beech forest once, and that's what we wish to do, is to regenerate native back where the wildlings were. So, the issues with wildling control, if you look at a broader area, are the cost. There's always a cost for wildling control, the complexity, and the fact that they're growing exponentially. They're growing at 90,000 hectares a year. So I don't know a logging crew anywhere that can do 90,000 hectares a year. Unless you've got something that's growing at the same rate as these things are growing, you're never going to solve the problem. If we don't solve the problem, we have full canopy cover. So we looked at it differently. The first thing we had to solve was cost of revenue. Instead of going with your hand out to people like yourselves or the government saying, I want money so I can spray this, I want money so I can actually plug it, pull it, do what we all do. We've looked at it from a different perspective. We think the wildlings are a biomass that can produce revenue. We don't think it now, we know it. So in every stage of the way, we create a revenue stream. So when we're removing the wildling trees, we turn the wood chip into another product, a product that has value. When we're remediating the soil structure, we're putting biochar back into the soil so we claim carbon offsets. When we regenerate the native forest, we're negotiating with the government to get a 50-year carbon right on the land that we replant. so that we've got a long tail of revenue streams. And that pays for the management of that land, because at the moment, let's face it, no one's got any money, no one's got any resource, no one's got any capacity. So it's up to the private sector to start doing this now. That's the first thing we solved. The next thing we solved was the complexity, and this is where I get into the harvesting of these trees. On the right, you see a typical harvesting operation on steepland forestry. The equipment now that you've got to use, because no longer are you allowed to use one man on a saw on a slope, you've got to use machines and 3 observers or something absurd like that. But you see, just to pull those truckload of logs, they need haulers, they need excavators, they need on the slope processors, and then they need waratahs on the landing, and probably skidders to pull the stuff that's on the side of the roads. That's about a $3.5 million capital expenditure on that equipment alone. And every one of those machines has humans in them. You've got slash and debris mobilisation on the slope there, it's left there. It's the nature of forestry now. We cut the branches off, we cut big hunks off, and it gets left on the slope. And as you know, that ends up in the waterways. So roading costs $30,000 a kilometre, and it's limited by access, maybe 500 metres up the slope, they're limited by. So you can see that's not the answer of getting rid of wildlands using traditional thinking. We turned it simplistic. So for a long time, an associate of mine was trying to convince me we could harvest trees with drones, logging with drones. For 2 years, I told him I was an idiot. But then I started to understand what he was talking about. So we have at the moment, it's just being built right now, the largest drone in the world. It's about the size of a Tesla. It lifts 500 kgs, same as a heavy lift helicopter. The item next to it is what we call an in situ robotic wood chipper. I just want you to think of cheese grater, because that's where the innovation came from. Originally, when we were looking at how to chip trees in situ, we thought of beavers, and we looked at their jaws and the way they designed, and we looked at nature all the time to find the answers. And then one day we were grating cheese on the bench and realised that a cheese grater is what we need. So that there is 3 rotating drums. Each of those drums look like a cheese grater, and it collects the wood chip inside those drums, and it just grinds down the tree very slowly, right? And collects all the biomass. The drone's job, it's a workhorse. It goes backwards and forwards and picks the IRWCs up from within the forest. And the thing at the bottom is just a chip liner. I mean, that's all the piece of equipment we need to actually remove wildlands from the forest. Our capex is $100,000. In fact, it's just gone up. It's $115,000 for the drone and the IRWC. And our first IRWC prototype's being built right now. We should be receiving it by the end of the week. The way we do our work, there is no slash. There are no humans, there's no roading, and there's no limitations. So it seems to be the perfect answer for wildlife, especially when you look at the branch, when you look at the Mount Isabel area as well. They're automated. So these things fly through the forest, carrying an IRWC underneath them, and they drop it onto a tree, and it just starts eating the tree until it gets to the bottom. The other issue with it, the other benefit of these is they're scalable. For that same 4.5 million for a logging crew, we can put 100 of these in a year. Now, what makes these unique is we've partnered with SpaceX, Elon's company, and every one of these drones is connected to a central control center in town. So there are no men on the slope. There's nobody there. There is one person actually on the site operating, just checking things that need to be checked. Does the diesel generator have enough diesel in it, for example? So all their flight planning, everything is done with AI that we've written called Skyborn AI. They are completely autonomous. So we let them loose and they go. They build their flight plans, they have protocols, they have a geofenced area they can't go out of. This means we can have exponential growth. We can get rid of wildlands once and for all. They're compact. So here's just an artist impression, but each one of these is what we call the drone house. And the drone you can see at the end there, it lands on there every 30 minutes, goes into its little house and recharges. And one of the benefits of where we are today is, I mean, if you remember back, remember back 15 years ago, these things were the size of bricks. And the battery technology in these is so advanced now, and it's advancing and compounding on itself, just like computers used to. How they've all compounded with the memory, etc. Well, batteries doing the same. So we're starting to use supercapacitors where in these here, they take about a minute to recharge. So the turnaround time is really fast. But inside that little house, there's sensors that sense everything that on the drone itself, because the CAA is putting very strict regulations on us, that we've got to check the machines every now flight time. We're taking it better. Every time it lands, there's a whole run-through check it does before it can go back out again. The drone itself is a platform. It's a platform of sensors that picks up all the information in the forest around it in real time. It's creating a real-time environment as it's flying through. Each drone is connected to each other with a long mesh network, which means they act in a swarm. So you can imagine 50, 10, 20 of these things working in a swarm, just cutting trees down to nothing. So that is our harvesting side. The next step of our RRR process was remediating the soil function. And as I said, the soil's dead underneath these zones, these pine zones or conifer zones. So we sprayed a mulch of mix on there pretty quickly after we've harvested the area. It's about that thick, 1.5 inches thick. It's made up of the ready seed type emulsion. We mix it with 5 tons of biochar. So for every hectare, we get 13.5 tons of CO2 offsets. So it's carbon neutral. We also spray 20 tons of wood chip back onto the slope as well. That wood chip's inoculated with a mycelium, a native mushroom called Horori. It is an amazing New Zealand native mushroom. It's the only one that glows fluorescent in the dark, but it's also got another attribute. It eats conifers. It eats them like no tomorrow. The forestry industry is a little bit hesitant on it. However, it does the job of actually destroying any new wildlings that come up. And that will be inoculated throughout the wood chip that we spray back onto the soil surface. There will be cover seed in there as well, so we start getting a cover going onto the slope immediately. And then that sets it up for the next step, which is we regenerate native. I should mention, all these tasks that we're talking about are done by drone, not by humans. Here, the tomato method we use, which has been widely used on the East Cape and in some areas in South Island, where they've taken the cost of planting native from 30,000 hectare down to 6. So it's a really beneficial and economic way of doing it. And they're getting really good results after 10 years. So it's a program that's been proven. We're taking it a step further. We've got robots who are actually going to be doing the replanting. And as I said, the replanted areas will be with a 50-year management plan in partnership with the owner, which in this case is DOC. And we share the revenues with DOC so they can keep their huts maintained and do things that they're meant to be doing. So Hanna Springs, back to where we started. We're in Jolly's Pass, and the reason I'm here today is this is in your area, and you are a stakeholder, so I'm wanting to tell you what we're doing, how we're going to do it, and find out if there's issues that you guys particularly have that we need to address. But specifically, that's kind of stopped on me. There you go. That's the first stage of what we're doing, the forest park behind Hanna there. You see Jolly's Pass on the right, and you see Jack's Pass on the left of block number 9. We're starting January, February, we start testing our drones up there, and we expect to be in full production by May, July. And then we will start moving right through the forest and reconvert it back into beech forest. The issues that we need to address probably with yourselves is road movements. This is an example of our site, the area bounded by blue is the first harvest area. You can see little dots of red up there. Those are our landing zones. And as you can see, it's not a traditional landing site you have in forestry, 2 hectares ploughed into the earth. It's just on the side of the road. We are going to be transshipping our wood chip from those sites down Jolly's Pass Road to the area bounded in orange at the base of the mountain there. And they will be on a hook bin trailer, very similar to what you see the rubbish moving up to Cape Valley. They'll be dropped, the hook bins will be dropped there, and we're working with a local cartage contractor who's going to be picking those bins up and transporting them to Christchurch. Obviously, the only restraint we have here is the Hamner Pass Bridge, or sorry, the Hamner Bridge, but the transport operator has told us how we can get it in there. And that's it. This is more about the AI, but it's probably don't want to bore you with that. It gets pretty tedious. Just get questions. That could help.
Yeah, through the chair, I just want to get my head around the chipping side, because if you're chipping the trees on site,
Yep.
how are you collecting it?
Ah, okay.
Because, I mean, some of the country's pretty rugged, so you wouldn't, you know, you're chipping it on the side of a hill.
Yeah.
How's that working?
So this here is an IRWC. So you see the 3 drums on there?
Oh, it goes inside the drum.
That's
Okay.
correct. So if you can imagine you grate cheese at home, cheese goes inside the grater. Those drums are just revolving around very slowly, and they're just chipping the tree, and it just descends down the tree. The chip resides inside the drum. That's why we pick those up and bring them back to the staging area where they get emptied into the chip bins.
So the branches on a tree,
Yep.
you know, Douglas fir, that, you know, they're sweet.
Yep.
To shed snow, the ideal tree in our environment, when you look at them, they're certainly designed for snow better than our natives are.
Yeah.
That's why they're just taken over, but big branches that'll just chew its way down the.
Absolutely. You know, if you can imagine the branches that are hitting the bottom of that revolving drum,
and it's just chewing them up.
trim through and they drop on the ground. Now, it's kind of counter to what we want to do, because we want to be able to get all the biomass off the ground, because the cones are going to be on those branches. And that's why it's imperative for us to go through within a month after clearing the site and spray that emulsion over that surface layer, because it locks all that stuff into the ground and the fungus just starts attacking those branches immediately, because it's just sugar for them. And they are underneath the emulsion, so it's the debris. If you compare that to a harvesting site, it's quite different.
Yeah. So the last question would be the energy source for recharging. What's your energy source? Diesel generators or?
Yeah, it's a diesel generator at this stage. Yeah. I mean, everything's an evolution. We would like to get it to be better, but at this stage, it's the most convenient way of doing it. We will be taking diesel back up to the site for that.
Yeah, fascinating. Brilliant presentation. Thank you very much. How long does this take to go through a tree? You put it on the top of the tree.
On the tree's diameter and size.
Yeah.
And it's really varied when you walk into a wildering forest. There's tall, spindly ones that are about that big.
Yeah.
About 40 meters high.
Yeah.
And in relation to your branch question, there's bigger ones. The edge trees will always have big branches, but the ones in the forest don't, because they've grown close together and they're just poles, basically.
So for an average tree,
for an average tree, I'd be able to tell you in January when we actually have them going. But the reality is we don't actually care, because it's really interesting doing this work. So if you've been in the forestry industry, you've got to flip your heads on the way you think. How long from pull time? How much am I getting on the truck a day? For this, we don't care, because we will have at least a third more IRWCs working when we will have drones, because they just work until they're full. When they're full, they stop, and a set of lights comes on the top of it, and the drones are searching through the forest for those lights. Now, the IRWCs are connected in that mesh swarm network with the drones. They're all communicated.
Yeah.
So the AI we've written is quite incredible, because it's in English. So the drones are all talking to each other in English, and we can listen to them. And we don't want to interrupt what they're doing, but we listen to them. We've actually programmed into them that they have an emotion. They hate wilding trees. And their purpose is to remove all wilding trees from New Zealand. And this is, they're thinking, they're sentient. So it's quite exciting.
So these 9 blocks on Mount Isabel.
Yep.
You don't have an idea of how long it'll take?
Yeah, we expect 18 months to 2 years, depending on the months.
And how many of these will be working at any one time?
We are starting with 9, but all our income is just going into creating more of them.
And last question, do they make much noise?
I cannot comment on that until we've got one going. And at the end of this month, we'll have our first one going, but they can be tuned. I mean, any rotors can be tuned to not make a lot of noise. They are working 24 hours a day. They don't take breaks.
No.
They're not human, they don't have kids, and they don't have.
So your first one's going to start in a month
First one we have flying in a month.
in Hammer.
No, not in Hamner, in our workshop. We have CAA applications we're going through, which are quite long and arduous. We expect them to be finished within about 3 to 4 months, fingers crossed, for this government.
Thank you.
Amazing. So people will just slowly see the forest disappear.
Yes.
Yeah, look, I was going to ask about the noise as well, so thanks for asking about that, Tom. But so these, you know, we know that wilding plants, they're normally in an area, and that is all that is there because of the nature of that. But how do these, I mean, I suppose it's part of the AI, but is there any risk of them just sort of, you know, on the edge of one of those areas, hammering down something like a notable tree or a native or something that?
That's a good question. Here you see, when we were training the AI, we went to the model train shop and we got a whole lot of Douglas fir models and a whole lot of birch tree models. And you'll see here, oops, up one. You'll see here, if I can get to work, the AI learning. So the southern beech is green. So not only is it learning and identifying the trees, because that's the whole thing about all the sensors that are on the drone platform, they are also looking for the centre of the tree. So green is beech, red is Douglas fir, so it only goes for Douglas fir. We train it to look for trees, this particular species.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They also have a geofence around them.
Yeah, we talked about that around the
Yeah.
outskirts of the area that
They
you
can't go
block.
outside that geofence. They have protocols if a human wanders onto the site where they, if the human doesn't go away, they have to shut down. So there's a lot of safeguards in there.
Have you let the community know that you're doing these things? You know,
No, not at this stage.
because of-
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wondering, you know, it's just for, you know, people to know what's happening and training, like, there's a few questions asked.
That's really important.
Yeah, we are going to be holding community workshops, but at this stage we're still in process with DOC. I'm going through the application process to actually start on the site. So once that's signed off, then we will definitely.
So picking up on that, I mean, can maybe we ask DOC at the same time from a, you know, a Department of Conservation viewpoint in terms of everything we just heard was, you know, eye-opening in terms of what I understand here, and but where DOC sits on this and communication and community responsibilities and so on.
I've just been fully supportive of this from the start. When I came into DOC, I've been involved in the National Program for Wildlings since day zero, and from the start I was always just like, why are we just like always just trying to kill these things? Like, it's the one weed in New Zealand that generates enough biomass that we can actually use it. There's no other weeds in New Zealand that we can do that with. And then when I got introduced to Carbon Lab, I was like, this is exactly what we need to be supporting. And like for DOC, like, we don't have heaps of money or heaps of people, heaps of resources, but we've got heaps of trees. We've got so many sites. So that's the least we can do is provide some trial sites and kind of get this happening. So that's kind of where we are at the moment, is just supporting it and trying to facilitate trials and get it going. Yeah. As far as communication goes, I've put internally, it's been well communicated, like right up to DG level. And as far as community goes, I've been in regular contact with the local DOC staff in Hamner, so they all know about it. And then as far as the wider public community goes, we just didn't want to go there until it was all kind of locked away. Yeah. But as soon as it is, then we're in that position to kind of say this is what's going on. And even still, it'll still, you know, we'll still give the community a good few months notice anyway. Yeah, and it's not going to go from 0 to 100. Like it'll just be, you know, one drone, one IRWC, just trying some stuff first, very lightly, and then it will kind of scale up very slowly. So, yeah.
What's you using the drones for all 3 phases?
Yes, some of the, I mean, we don't need heavy lift drones for replanting.
No.
So with the replanting, we looked at, we were inspired by, sounds like we hang around looking at things to be inspired all the time, but the sandhopper on the beach, this little animal that's in the sand that can hop, they're also called along. So when you're on a slope, especially a slope that's like that, it's got rocks, it's got all sorts of obstacles. The sandhopper needs to be able to, or a machine like it, needs to be able to jump over those or walk through them. Trainers and suitable. The Canadians have been doing drones for a while where they fire trees into the ground from a great height and balls, but that's not going to work. So we developed what we call the sandhopper, which is a little machine that's on the ground, and we just let them loose, they're disposable, and they carry 3 racks of plants on top of them, and they go along and they're planting plants, but they have a dual purpose. It's far easier to actually rip a Douglas fir out of the ground when it's this high than when it's this high. So its purpose, and it stays there after it's planted, is to rip every seedling out of the ground. It's programmed to do that. It's part of the mesh network as well. So yeah, we've kind of taken a few steps through than what most people do.
Thank you.
Well, it's a great breakthrough because
Oh, exactly.
you look down
Yeah.
at Kings, I look at there with a couple of those trees down and they're coming back twice as fast.
Yeah.
And you just think, what, that was a waste of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, just, I'm blown away by it. I'm just worried about public safety using, you know, the forest is used by a lot of residents and even mountain bikes and walking tracks and exploring.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. As I said, the drones have a protocol in them that if humans are close by, first they're warned off and the drones talk. So I guess if a resident sees a drone coming towards them, telling them to go away, they might go away. It's kind of scary.
I'm taking notice from a machine.
You'll find Henry Rain odd.
Yeah.
The place will be well signposted, it'll be well broadcast what we're doing up there, and we would be asking for people's cooperation with the project and what the outcomes should be. Yeah.
Can I just piggyback with that, given that it is a trial, is it not a good idea to close the forest rather than, you know, because this is the first time that these have been up, so you tell us, you know, that they will shut down if there's a human there, but you know, given it's the first time.
The area we're looking at is in fact not accessible by walking trails.
Right, okay.
So the areas you're talking about are more behind Waterfall Creek there, where where that big car park is, which is the watershed number 8.
Yeah.
You can't get into watershed number 7 unless you trespass through Rainier Land, which they're a bit off of. But the block number 2, 5, 3 and 4 are inaccessible unless you walk up Jolly's Pass Road or the Hydro Road there, which can be illustrated there, Hydro Road and Jolly's Pass Road. At the moment, Jolly's Pass Road has a gate on it. I was up there the other day and some hunter was up there poaching, but you don't see anybody else up there unless they drive in from round the back up Jack's Pass. But like all forestry operations, when the forestry operation is going down, the area is closed down, locked off. So we'd be doing the same.
I guess these actually have an inbuilt, like a heat sensor or something, so that it's actually going to distinguish living beings.
Yeah,
something along
infrared.
those lines. So
They do,
animals
yeah.
and humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we will be using that for pest management afterwards as well. Yeah.
It's amazing with technology. I keep looking at the date for this and April Fool's Day, isn't
The exciting thing is next year you'll be welcome to come up and have a field day and you can see it operating.
That'd be very cool.
Yeah. So the important, and this is, I can't iterate this enough, the important thing is, we're not a harvesting operation going into harvest. This is only for stage one, the big part for us to be replanting the native beech. And so we have nurseries that are in, you know, in your district, they're actually now looking at growing seed for that. And important thing to really push is it's probably, because it's mechanised, it has the capability of being the largest regeneration project in New Zealand ever undertaken, because as long as the money flow keeps going with it, there's no reason this just can't keep expanding. And the shareholders involved in the company are passionate about that. So,
where's your workshop?
Pardon me?
Where is your workshop?
No, we subcontract a lot of our work out, so it's in Christchurch.
Okay.
But Addington's where the IRWC's been made. And the drones being assembled in our offices actually.
Okay.
So, that's, yeah, we have big wide doors.
Just question through the chair, just regarding larch. Larch is it's not as invasive as Douglas fir, but it's still a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
Could it identify? I mean, it's a similar style of tree to a Douglas fir, and then it's, you know, could be identified different from a beech, and certain times of year it's really obvious because it's over the winter, it's got the foliage on. So presumably it could be adapted to take out larch.
We can write into the programming to take out larch, take out contorta, radiata, Douglas fir, basically everything. Obviously, on broadleaf to get onto. Other sensor systems it has on board its platform is LiDAR. LiDAR has issues at the moment because it can't be done in real time. It's very data intensive. We've just partnered with a Chinese company that have actually broken that Gordian knot. So now when it's getting its LiDAR, it's getting all information in real time. And it's actually, they call it augmented. He's clever.
Next thing though, we humans are strange creatures, because I know like the trees around, say Arthur's Point, there's been a lot of people take them as a natural landscape, and then they go, they've taken the trees away. You know, even the wildings or whatever.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just getting. That's where I think you need to have your community on side. You know, to come along. That's the only downside. You know,
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, a lot of these trees have been around longer than a lot of humans, so they just kind of perceive them as normal.
They become the nature of the place.
Yeah, the whole backdrop. Yeah. We have problems like that all the time, challenges in Queenstown and like Ashburton Lakes and places like that.
So when we've gone to the beech forest, will they become a seed source to move up through the Molesworth? So you're saying the Douglas firs are, you know, spread, will the beech forest do the same thing?
Just beech just doesn't spread in the same way as
Waterborne seeds are only spread down rivers.
yeah, and like wild and conifers, we've detected spread up to like 30 kilometres just from airborne seed, just from wind.
I was just asking because you know,
Creating a new problem.
Yeah, beech spread in a different way. They kind of march like soldiers and just like drop, just keep going really close to the parent trees and very slowly as well.
They also don't have the fungus underlying them that creates simplification of the Douglas fir seed.
I think it's an amazing breakthrough, you know, into the pests that you can really, you know, without talking about wild trees, and they were more or less, how do we do it? Because, you know, if you need unlimited money to, if you're going to do it the way we do it at the moment, then it's not really working.
Yeah. We had a Wilding Summit the other week in Melbourne. Now, Minister for Biosecurity was there, and we were just talking about funding the whole time. And the funding gap at the moment is like 20 mil per annum. Like we've got a baseline of 10, and we need at least 30 to keep doing it the way we're doing it.
Yeah, because, you know, that piece meeting, they just showed that the wildings, even with the money got there, they just,
Yeah.
you know, and it gets exponential.
Yeah.
And it's, good on you.
Thank you. So great. I guess I have a question. Who maintains the Jollies Pass Road? Is that council responsibility, or is that
Unmaintained road.
Is it unmaintained from a certain point, or is it like just from the bottom, or?
Yep, from the bottom to the top.
Yeah, right.
The whole thing.
But Jack's Pass is maintained.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's in good nick apart from Joy's Pass to the
Oh, the back
termination
side.
at the bottom at the other end.
Yeah, the other side, yeah.
That's part was bad.
Yeah.
Do you have any issues with us using that road?
No, no. And if you want to do a bit of maintenance.
I'm gonna keep things going in now, and I have to, yeah. Is the Hydro Road a council road or another?
No, that's a private road, Hydro Road. I'd have to check, but.
Yeah, I think it is.
Transmission.
Yeah, it's for the transmission lines.
And would that be a transpower issue?
Transfer, yeah. I'll check that and I'll come back to you. Greg.
Thank you. Cool. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Just going forward, Greg, have you got like long kind of
Yes, I have.
keep people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause it'd be quite good when you start having to have something saying to explain to the community there.
Yeah.
Well, now that I've met you and having the community board, I'll make sure that
give me a card and
those
we'll
up.
make contact.
Yeah, so that'd be great, and we'll keep you abreast of what's abreast of our development.
Yeah, and you know, the minute you start, I'll be up there with you. I wanna watch this, right?
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
All this chatter up there, talking to each other.
I'll, if you can give me a picture, I'll put it into the AI so the drummers here.
Enemy number one.
No, I'm not an enemy, I'm definitely a friend. Yeah.
Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you, huh?
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah.
If that's it, really, I think we can conclude the meeting, so.
It's a whole new angle on Guy Fawkes Day.